What's up, guys? This is Pedro from my Stuttering life, where you will hear the good, the bad, the very ugly. We're gonna laugh, we're gonna cry, but through it all, just know that you are not alone. So, let's get started. Welcome, Callum Schofield.
Thank you, Pedro. I'm really excited to be back here, back where it all began, and I can't wait to spend some time talking to you again.
Oh my gosh, this is Callum. I mean, I have been waiting for this. This has, you have no idea. I'm speechless. I'm actually speechless. Thank you for hopping on. We have a couple of topics that I want to cover, so let's get started. Now, you were on my podcast nearly 2 years ago, and so you were talking about you wanted to get into comedy, but before we talk about the comedy, I want to talk about your podcast. Woo, Callum, you gave me the biggest compliment that I think anyone could ever receive. You had told me that you started your own podcast after being on my podcast, and I mean, I was just walking on air for weeks and weeks and weeks. I mean, that was the best compliment. And your guess, Callum, woo, let me just read the list that I wrote down. All right, so you've had musicians, singers, Olympians, Royal Marine Commandos. You've had other podcasters whom I know and who are awesome. Chris Jackson and Rama Siva. And you had AO. AO is fantastic. And you have also had comedians. And so, I mean, Callum, that is fantastic. Your podcast is just awesome. And so I am just beyond proud of all of your amazing work as a podcaster. Tell me, how has that been for you, podcasting?
It was definitely a learning curve. I think if you listen to my first episode compared to the latest, it probably still a few months perhaps to the last episode, the way things were done, as small as my kit, my setup, to intro music, outro music, the way I was with the guests, everything progressed massively. And with a podcast, it's a visual representation of progress. And I feel like with a lot of things in life, we don't get these clear markers or milestones. But you can listen back to old episodes. You can listen to episodes in the middle. You can listen to some of your more favorite episodes. You can pinpoint where you progressed, where you developed, and just reaching out to all these different people. As I've interviewed, as you said, former Royal Marine Commandos and paratroopers who are twice the size of me, as someone with a stutter, seeing someone who I presume to be a lot more masculine than me, a lot more domineering, could be a challenge. But in this setting, the people I've met, I've still got to pinch myself. As I've watched them on TV, I've seen them live, I've read their books, and I've sat opposite and spoke to them. So it's absolutely bizarre. But without appearing on your podcast, as you said, nearly 2 years ago, that seed of podcasting would have never been planted at all. So you have a lot of responsibility for the Schofield stories, really.
Oh, Callum, I mean, thank you, sir. I mean, you've had some amazing actors from the BBC, and I mean, you talk about, the learning curve. Believe me, if you've heard my first, uh, my first initial episodes, I mean, they were rough. They were rough. But as we learn, as we grow, I mean, we just get better and better and better. And we're always learning. We're always learning. Right now, I'm learning how to do video podcasting, which, I'm still learning, Kelly. There is a curve. And so, I have a couple of, episodes in the video queue that, I need to get out to YouTube. But I mean, this is a learning process, but it is so, I'm having the best time ever. Like what you were talking about. We are speaking to amazing individuals. And I mean, whew, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. I mean, I'm just so proud of you, Callum. I'm so, so, so proud of you. All right. So let's talk about the comedy. Because um, you had spoken briefly on our podcast episode nearly 2 years ago that you wanted to dive into this endeavor. So number one, um, what was the thought behind the title of your online virtual comedy club, the C Comedy Club, and how has it been going?
Well, if you asked me 2 years ago, would I have established my own comedy club, which on opening night we had nearly 100 people on Zoom, which was terrifying for me. I did not want my first gig to be in front of such a big audience, but well, I thought it could be a play on words, as we got the C dash comedy for comedy, as if someone is stammering or stuttering, and it just is a clear indication for anyone who stutters that they're welcome at this comedy club. If you want to say the C could stand for Callum, then I have no objections to that either. But it's been going very well. I'm trying to get it more consistent, as back in March, I think it was, we sort of opened the doors, ran for quite a few weeks. It was all going very well. But then, of course, life gets in the way. So I've had changes in career, changes in location, lots of different things, which meant that comedy took a back foot. But now I'm trying to get back into it. I'm writing more material, and yeah, we're back and hoping to get these shows, these even either a 2 weekly, monthly basis, just to try and spread a bit of laughter and create that safe environment. There's quite a lot of people who stammer and stutter like comedy, but maybe anxious to attend a comedy club in case of getting picked on, in case of having to do a bit of public speaking, in case their stammers, their speech impediments become the butt of any jokes. But here it's a safe environment, and we follow on. We normally have about 3 or 4 acts, and we have an open mic. And in this open mic, people who stammer, they can sing, they can act, they can tell some jokes, or they can just purely stand up and talk. They can tell us about their day if they really want to, but just to encourage people to take that step and talk in front of an audience. So, yeah, it's something that I'm really glad to be a part of. I just hope that over the next few months the numbers grow and we sort of become a solid community, really, is what the aim is.
Well, you have Pedro now. So, I'm in 55 countries, Callum. Believe me, I am going to get the word out on all 6 continents. I'm still working on Antarctica, the last continent. I'm trying to conquer that one, but I'm still working on it. But So, okay, comedy. I cannot tell a joke to save my life because
Yeah, yeah.
because I'll have a block, like a really long block, and then after a while, I forget what joke
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was telling, and it's like, no, I'm not good at jokes. But how do you come up with your material? Like, if I can correlate it with my podcast, I'm 50 years old, and so I draw on my memories growing up, with having a stutter, and so that's where I draw upon my podcast episodes. um what do you do to come up with your material for your comedy stand-up?
It's quite concerning, actually, how much of my comedy is based on true, unfortunate events which have happened to me. It's one of those things that I couldn't make up a random event to tell jokes about. It's 99% things I've done, been part of, or seen. As most of my comedy is storytelling, I do some observational bits and the odd sort of one-liner, but I'm a very much narrative storytelling kind of comedian. And obviously, there's always exaggeration in bits of comedy. I think that's because you take an improbable situation, or sorry, you take an improbable situation which has happened, and you add hints of the impossible to it, and I think that makes it even more funny because I'm not trying to trick the audience. They know which parts are true, and they know which parts are added for comedic effect, for example. But I draw from life experiences, and I think it was the American comic who's also a judge on America Got Talent, Howie Mandel, who said that comedy does come from a dark place in most comedians. And very similar with me. I write jokes about the hardship of having a stutter, but I put a comedic spin on it, and that helps my acceptance of my stutter and the acceptance of the names I got called when I was in school, the acceptance of the stressful moments which I've had because of my stutter. It's my way of accepting and moving forward because if you can laugh at yourself, then surely anyone else's words won't affect you really.
You've had previous comedians on your podcast. What did you draw from those conversations to help you in your endeavor?
One of the main things is you've got to have that little bit of self belief that you are good enough. I don't mean good enough to do a sellout arena tour or anything, but you are good enough you're good enough to stand on that stage. As if you are standing in front of the stage, whether you're singing, dancing, talking, doing comedy, and you go in half-heartedly, then anyone who's listening to that or watching that will pick it up in a heartbeat. I think we've all seen these talent show auditions where someone goes in half-heartedly and they don't go very far. So you have to run with it. And if you have these opportunities, you have to go for them, even if it's as I've done some of my comedy club gigs when we've had very, very small audiences, but it's still time in front of an audience. It's still doing something, and try and have not so much a structured plan, but have an idea of what you want to do. Have an idea of if you want to do comedy, what routes into it are they? Are you going to, like, for example, I now work a job from in a school. which means I have evenings, weekends free to do comedy shows, write comedy, which is perfect. And I took my inspiration from a comedian called James Acaster, whose autobiography is the funniest book I've ever read. And he worked as a teaching assistant, helping special needs children, so he could do comedy in between. And the comedians like Dane Baptiste, who I had on my show, he got himself a sustainable job first, so he could earn enough to then do comedy, as he didn't want to be a burden on his family. So I think it's important to get that balance right as well, as I'm very, very early on in my comedy career. And I know it takes years upon years to just get a paid gig, never mind get television or radio time. So you have to be prepared to put the graft in now, which is why I spend a lot of time working on jokes. Even jokes that work, I will still think, how can I make it funnier? How can I get, instead of say 4 laughs in a 1-minute joke, how can I get 6 or 7 laughs in that joke? So you've got to be willing to put an awful lot of graft in for almost very little reward or visual progress, but just having that belief that you will get there and you're doing it for the right reasons. Like anything, you've got to love and enjoy what you do. And I think that's the bottom line, is you have to enjoy what you do, whether it's comedy or anything else.
See, and that is so true. I mean, you have to love what you do. They have to, the audience, the people, they need to hear your passion. And once they feel it, once they see it, once they hear it, I mean, they're in. They are in. Now, how do people r- 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 react? Because we are here to break stereotypes. We're here to tell the world that PWS, people who stutter, we are awesome. How do people react when you tell them that you are a stand-up comedian?
It's an interesting one, as I think in general, for people absolutely who don't stutter, if someone fumbles on a punchline to a joke, it ruins that joke. So you do get these responses thinking, can someone like him do comedy or do comedy well? And the way I do that is by embracing my stutter into my comedy. I use it. So if I can't get a punchline out, I will make a joke about that, then retry that joke. I will just try and make the audience laugh and then break the ice by addressing my stutter. And don't get me wrong, it makes me a bit anxious at times, particularly in the set that I've got prepared for Wednesday. There's this one part where I have to recite the classic tongue twister of a Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. And just putting that in, I'm thinking, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I putting that in my material?
My heart is hurting just hearing that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I've already got my lines prepared for if I have to redo that line. And it's just, I'm thinking, it'll either go really well or my 5-minute set will turn into a 15-minute set. And it's going to be one of the two. But you've got to push, I think with comedy in general, you have to push the boundaries. And I don't want to play it safe. So putting Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers into my comedy routine, even saying it out loud is making me think, why? But it's something you have to do. As what I'm
Yes.
moving towards is I'm stepping away from purely stuttering jokes and stories, and I want to prove I am a comedian who has a stutter as opposed to a stuttering comedian. There's a lot more embarrassing things have happened to me than just stuttering, and I want to share those weird and wonderful stories. And I think it's quite nice. But I think about lots of comedians, I think they don't have something like a stutter. They talk about normal day life and they're fine with it. So, but when people see me as a comedian with a stutter, they almost expect stuttering related jokes. So it can be a challenge to move out of that bracket. I say bracket, it's not very big. It's not a big bracket. I think the Stuttering comedians consist of myself. I got two friends who are Scottish. Of course, we got Drew Lynch from America's Got Talent, and a good friend of mine, Nina G, who has been quite instrumental in thinking, if she can do it, so can I. As I spoke to Nina G many times, very naturally funny, brilliant character. So, but again, Nina G talks about different things as well as stuttering, because there's more to her than stuttering, the same as me. So the response you get is almost the one you give to the audience, as when they've not seen me before, when they've not heard me do comedy, it's a clean slate. So you have 5 or 10 minutes to show them what you can do and who you are. As having a genuine interest, I think, is the best way to connect people, whether that's through a funny way, a serious way, professional way. If you show a genuine interest, then you're one step ahead. So by sharing these genuine stories about my life, which are relatable, like part of the set I'm writing for Wednesday involves me bringing my father on a date with me to talk to the waiter. And I think you can see the audience, whether they stutter or not. The idea of having your parent sat on the table with you on a date, it writes itself, the comedy does. So you just really have to embrace and run with it, really.
See, and to just hear you talking about that, I'm already laughing because I can picture it. I can picture it. And
Yeah.
and here is the amazing thing about social media. Um, there are a lot of comedians and actors and you know who grind hard, year after year after year after year. The beauty of being on social media is that anybody, if they're Googling comedy, you're going to pop up. And all it takes is for that one person. Because here's the amazing part. You don't know who's watching you. You have no idea who is watching you. And there might be one person from Los Angeles or New York. Oh, I have to have him on my show. And I mean, it is just thrilling to just think about it. I mean, the day after Wednesday, you could be picked up by the BBC. You could be picked up by, anyone in New York or Los Angeles, Hollywood. I mean, and that is just thrilling to know because I mean, I sound like a broken record, but I'm just so proud of you, Callum.
Thank you. Yeah.
This is so awesome. The other kind of broken record,
Yeah.
not the other one.
Yeah.
But bump. See, I just wrote a joke. Okay.
You did. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. So, who who really makes you laugh?
That's a good question, but there's so many comedians that I love. I've got to start off probably with Rod Gilbert, who's a Welsh comedian like myself, and he's hilarious. He's brilliant. He quite an angry comedian. He did a whole show on his anger management, which was brilliant. He's amazing. James Acaster, who's a English comedian. I've recently read his autobiography, and it is the funniest book I've ever read. I'm from the podcast way as well. I think Dane Baptiste is hilarious, and we also got Dennis Chaponda, who was on my podcast. He was on Britain's Got Talent, and I'm going to see him in October, which I'm very excited about. Then in January, I'm going to see a comedian from Liverpool called John Bishop, and he's one of my favourite comedians of all time. I love John Bishop so much so I've had to buy an individual ticket to go and see him because it was selling out fast, and I thought I could not go, or I could just buy this one seat and go to the show on my own. And I thought, I've never done anything like that. I've never even eaten out in a restaurant by myself. But I thought, no, I'm going to go to a city and I'm going to go and see John Bishop. So many. Like it's Michael McIntyre, Jason Manford. Names keep popping into my head, but there's so many brilliant comedians out there, and you can take little nuggets from each of them. Like I tried to do the enthusiasm of Lee Evans with the slight overreacting of little things of Rod Gilbert, with the quirkiness of James Acaster. I tried to just, you can take little bits, and that's not copying. That's when I do comedy, I think, oh, I can see a little bit of what they do. I can see a little bit of this. I can see, oh, simple things like when you come to the end of a gig. I mean, Greg Davis, who's again very funny, he slows down to build suspense and tension, and I do that. Then I make a joke about that I'm not stuttering. This is for suspense to get a bigger laugh. So you can pick up on what works for these comedians and use it. And like you said, the age of social media, I can watch comedians who are from different countries. I can watch comedians who I've never heard of, just to see what works and what doesn't work. Really, as I just enjoy laughing. I'll happily go to a comedy club and watch 3 comedians I've never seen before, just to have a night out and have a good laugh with some friends. So yeah, that's a very waffled answer to your question, but we got there.
It is a great answer. When I was growing up, you know, back in the 1970s, way before your time, 1980s and 90s, my favorite comedians were Gallagher, because he had that physical comedy. He would bring watermelons on stage and a huge wooden hammer. He would tell a joke, and then he would hit that watermelon, and then it would go all over his audience. I mean, I love that physical comedy. And then also Benny Hill, which I'm dating myself. He's from England. The Benny Hill show, I mean, it was just a popular show back in my day. And so, I mean, laughter is therapeutic. I mean, I laugh every day. I should have abs of steel from all of the laugh. But I mean, I truly believe that, laughter has really saved me, because now I can laugh at things that happened to me in the past, whereas at that time it was traumatic and scary and anxiety and fear. But now, I'm a little older. I'm a little wiser, not that much, but I'm a little wiser. And so laughter, I think, is it's just therapeutic. So yes, awesome. Now, have you had a memorable moment on stage?
I think I'm quite early on in my career to pinpoint one. However, I did a charity gig for the Scottish Stammering Network, and one, saying that you've done a charity fundraising gig looks brilliant on any comedy CV. And 2, the social side of it was brilliant, as afterwards, I think, well, we were on Zoom, as obviously coronavirus, etc. I was speaking to people I've never met before, some promoters from Scotland, some people being in the business, in the industry, and we were probably talking till 2 in the morning, I think. I say I think because we had a few drinks afterwards, or obviously, so my memory got a bit fuzzy, let's say, after midnight, because it kept out, the drinks were going back and we were having a good time. But it was nice just to talk to people who have been there in comedy and complimented me. They said things like, when I came to do my set, it was a great lineup of nearly 10, I think, brilliant acts, all of them different, all of them amazing. And to say individually to me that my act was very good alongside all of these established comedians who've been in the business years longer than me was a really good feeling. It was really good. And it's just nice to have that social side of things. So I think definitely the gig for the Scottish Drama Network. And again, on stage, I felt really confident as I used some material that worked previously. I added some new material. This is what I'm doing on Wednesday. I'm doing a mix of material I know works and some new stuff. And it's just, yeah, so I'm excited about Wednesday, but definitely that Scottish Drama Network gig was almost a turning point when I thought I did comedy, I enjoyed it, but I thought maybe I could do comedy because I'm not bad at it as well. So that was definitely one of my favorite moments. And when you're on stage, I found that in this gig specifically, I did a bit of improvisation on stage. Like I said something that got a laugh, so I added a couple of lines, made it up on the spot, and bounced off the audience, and that got laughs too. I felt, as in my first few gigs and shows, I stuck to the script 100%. I stuck to what I learned. But in this show, I felt confident enough to sort of reel it out a little bit, make a few more, not dodgy jokes as such, but more jokes that are close to the line, then reel it back into my regular material. So that was definitely a great night overall.
That is awesome. And you are doing something that, I believe it's over, I think 90% people are just scared of public speaking. They would rather have a colonoscopy, they would
Yeah.
rather have dental like root canals, than go
Yeah.
up on stage and just speak in public. But what happens to you once you're either handed the microphone or you take that microphone? What happens to you? I mean, physically, emotionally. I mean, do, do you go into go mode or it's showtime?
I think you kind of have to, as don't get me wrong, prior to my slot, prior to my gig, I'm very nervous. And I know I try to distract myself by watching the people who are on before me, because I know if I don't, then I will start questioning every joke that I wrote for this night. So the nerves are there, but nerves are good because if you get nervous about something, it shows you care about it, it shows you want it. So then when I step out on, I can't even say stage because of the current climate, all my gigs have been in this room, or maybe I do one in my kitchen just for a change of scenery. But when I pop this microphone in my hand and then I get announced onto the virtual stage, it's still a stage, it's still an audience, it's still people who have either paid or donated money to be there, who want to come and see comedy. You have to run with it. So I know my opening line on Zoom is normally, I've got a stutter, so no, it's not your internet connection. And that always gets a laugh. And then just getting that initial laugh
I love that.
reassures me. It's a perfect opening line. And I was speaking to a comedian called Matt Brown, and he said, use that line, get that first laugh, and it's an instant laugh. You get the if you want to make the audience laugh within your opening line, then that, oh, I wonder if he'll be funny, is thawed slightly. I think that's the right word. So it's getting that initial laughter out in the open is very important. That's why I try to, and again, it addresses my stutter. It addresses the elephant in the room. As I've done gigs where I'm obviously the only comic who stutters, because if everyone did, then I would never get out of this stuttering community circle. So I've done gigs where people know me as Callum Schofield, or people see the name Callum Schofield, and that means nothing to them because why would they? It's a night for new comedians, and they don't know I got a stutter. So you have to get that out in the open sometimes. So if you stutter somewhere down the line in my set, they already know to almost half expect it. As if I didn't mention it, then started stuttering madly, that would just be a bit bizarre, throw the audience off what I'm saying. So you just have, and then the more laughs you get is almost like fuel in a car. It's almost like if this was a the the video game. I know some video games say the more people you shoot or the more coins you get, the faster you go, the more upgrades you have. I think with comedy, the more laughs you get as you go down your set, you feel more and more powerful. And that's what you need, because at the end, you, that last line is the last thing that people hear. So you have to make it either good or thought provoking. Like this one comedian, John Richardson, ends with something that he openly says in his set isn't the. He doesn't think it's like that funny as a joke, but it makes people think. And he says he likes it because it makes any married couples in the audience have something to argue about for the way home. So he says something like that just to mix it up. So that last line has you've got to deliver with confidence because it's the last thing people will hear. So when it's going well, I will run with it. But it's always going to be little jokes that you say that won't get a laugh. Because I could be writing material and I think, oh, this is hilarious, this is brilliant, and only half of it will work when I'm in front of an audience. And you've got to keep going when you have those little quiet patches where you don't get the laughs where you expected, but then other laughs will crop up in places you didn't expect. So again, as I said, it's all a learning curve, similar to podcasting. As I'll always watch my shows back. I record what I do when I can. Obviously, you can't record everything, but I record certain gigs, then watch them back, and I'll make notes and say, okay, that worked. Pause more there. That didn't work. How can we change that? As some jokes I've scrapped completely from my first few shows. Then there's other jokes that I have either rewrote or I'm in the process of rewriting. But I'm thinking there's something there, but it didn't work on the night for whatever reason. But you do have to have that little bit of self-confidence. And it was actually what Nina G said when she appeared on my podcast, that you have to sort of think that you're funny enough for people to want to watch you. And if you don't think that, then that is how you portray. Sort of what you feel on the inside is what you get on the outside. If you're positive on the inside, you will attract more positivity, I think. I think we all know when we're in a bad mood on the inside, we're a little bit more standoffish with people, a bit more grumpy, a bit more moody, whatever it is. And you don't attract that positive vibes, really. I don't like using the word vibes because I think there's better words out there, but it's along those lines. So when you're in front of an audience, it's not in a cocky way, as I think I know lots of comics who still get nervous when they're on stage. And I'm still nervous when I'm on stage, but I am in the performance, let's go for it mode at the same time.
See, and what I have learned is those nerves, we we know those emotions. We know those feelings, and that's just letting us know that we are about to do something great. That is what that is. And I mean, you were just, I mean, dropping golden nuggets. I mean, my hand hurts from writing down all these golden nuggets, and to just piggyback on a couple of your awesome points. Um, I it took me a long time to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And once once I began to, you know, make that switch in my head, whereas I mean, people have been telling me you can't be a podcaster. I mean, come on. I mean, really, who wants to hear a person who can't talk on the radio? And so uh, I've had to break down all those negative st- 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 stereotypes. And when I go and give a presentation, be it pre-COVID, I would hop on stage. During COVID, like you, I'm virtual. Once I grasp that microphone, once I hit record, it's 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 magic, Callum. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the best feeling. And so, like what you were talking about, to hear them laughing, I have a great a great opening line. You may borrow this. And so
Thank you.
what I tell them is, during Zoom or Skype, or when I'm on stage, I tell them, "Hi, I'm Pedro Peña. I have a speech impediment. I have a stutter. So if I get hung up on any word, just give me 8 hours and the word will come out." And
Yeah.
I hear their laughter. I said, "Yes, it's going to be great. It's going to be good. Everything is going to be all right." And so that is my opening line. You may borrow it because it has worked 100% of the time. And here's the awesome part. You hear the laughter. You hear the applause. The applause. It's like, wow. Wow. It's validation. All
Yeah.
of our hard work, all of our determination. I mean, it's like, I mean, it just makes you feel just so good inside. You can't wait to do the next one, and then the
Yeah.
next one, and then the next one. So yes. Whew. Okay, now I know you are new on this journey, but I still have to ask because it's happened to me hundreds of times. Has anything embarrassing ever happened to you on stage, either virtual or non-virtual?
Not yet. I'm not saying it won't because I'm sure it will. And if you listen to most of my material, it's embarrassing situations that have happened to me. Then it's inevitable that one of these situations will happen on stage. But that's just part of the experience, part of the job. As I don't go out expecting everything to go perfectly when I'm doing comedy. And I don't think any comedian does, or if they do, they maybe are a bit oblivious to the hard days. As there's always going to be people who don't find you funny. Some really popular comedians I don't find funny, but others do, and vice versa. So there's always going to be things like that. And I'm sort of renowned for getting myself in these random situations. So I'm sure one of them will happen on stage one day. And it's slightly scary that I can't think what, but that's what normally provokes my good material is situations that I couldn't have wrote before they happened, but I thought, no, that will happen to me. And then it does. So I'm, if anything, I'm almost looking forward to more embarrassing situations on stage and off stage because it now gives me more material, really. But that's not
Exactly.
saying that I want them, but I'm saying that I'll accept them when they come.
Okay, so because I'm a lot older than you are, Colin. I've had many, 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 and so I'll just tell you one just real quickly. When I was doing a presentation, I was having blocks. Okay, this was before I had my great, opening line, and I mean, I mean, nothing was coming out, and so then I became British on stage
Yeah, 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 yeah.
for a couple of lines, and then I went back to English, my regular English, and just the looks on their faces in the audience. It's just Pedro. It's just Pedro. But but I want to close out and just telling you, Callum, I am just so proud of you. I can't wait for Wednesday. So I want you to tell everybody, give us all of the details on what's happening on Wednesday.
So Wednesday, the 11th of August, we are restarting the Cjs Comedy Club. It's at 6:30 p.m. UK time, which I think at the moment we're on British Standard Time. So wherever you are listening, you can set the time difference for that. It's 6:30 we start. There's a Scottish comedian who stutters called Ewan McPherson. He's hosting this night, and he'll be joined by myself, John Carruthers, and Mark Cooper. Both of them, I believe, are also Scottish. As you always have links. So we will be the 4 performances. Then we'll have a little break, and this is where the open mic will come in. So anyone who stutters can get up and do anything they like. Not that history will repeat itself, but if you are listening and you happen to be a freestyle rapper, please stop when I tell you to stop. As we had one who just went on and on and on. And between us and your listeners, it was terrible. It was the same line over and over again,
Oh
just
my
changing people's
gosh.
names.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that was interesting. But so yeah, if you want to find us, you can look for the Cjs Comedy, the Comedy Club on Facebook, our Facebook page. The tickets are available on Eventbrite. Eventbrite, just again, if you type in the Cjs Comedy Club, there's not many about. I've chosen a name that's very, of course, easy to find. So please have a look. And yeah, it's an inclusive environment where we can have lots of fun. And I know some of our regular audience members from months ago will be coming back, which I'm looking forward to. There's a chance to meet people who you may have not met before. As always at the end of these shows, we hang around. I always hang around just for anyone who wants to chat. So yeah, it's going to be exciting.
How awesome. We will have the link to go and register on Eventbrite. And once you do that, it will put it into your own time zone. For me here in Texas, it will be at 12:30, I believe, on Wednesday. So I plan to have that day off, and so that way I can be there. I can't wait, Callum. So if my amazing global listeners want to reach out to you, for more information on your comedy, what is the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, my comedy social media is at comedy_Callum S. So comedy_CALLUMS. And that's the same for both Twitter and Instagram. I thought it definitely helps having that same username just so people can find you. Then again, find the Comedy Club, the Cjs Comedy Club on Facebook. Yeah, if you need my email for whatever reason, that's available across my social media. It's all on my profile. It's also, which is Callum Schofield, comedy@outlook.com. So if you got any queries, anything at all, just reach out to me on any of those platforms or via email. And please join our Facebook group. It's an ever-growing community. And it'd be nice if we could hit record numbers in our Facebook group as well as at these shows.
That is awesome, Callum. We will have all the links, and so that anyone around the globe, I mean Australia, Yemen, Pakistan, Germany, Brazil, Mexico, they can just hop on and just enjoy your comedy on Wednesday, August the 11th. When you register on Eventbrite, it will put it into your own time zone. So I want to encourage everybody who is hearing this podcast, and you know who you are because you're amazing, just register and just have an awesome time, because I will be there. I will be the loudest person. You'll have to mute me. I'll be the loudest person there. And so I want to just say, just again, Thank you, Callum. I mean, I'm. I mean, you have such a bright future. I'm just so thrilled, and I'm honored to be your friend from across the pond. I mean, you are just amazing, and I cannot wait for Wednesday.
Yeah, well, all I can say is thank you, Ray. Thank you for having me back on. It's quite humbling or even ironic that the episode that we did originally, I think the title was something like One Man's Journey to the Main Stage, as if you subconsciously knew I would end up doing comedy on a stage. So that's amazing. Like you say, in what other world would we have met and we would have had this friendship? It's just absolutely bizarre and brilliant. And yeah, thank you. Thank you. I thank to your incredible listeners, as the response I had last time was overwhelming. The the followers creeping up, the comments, the people who shared it, liked it. It was very overwhelming, and it's great to be back where all this sort of talking began. Really, so thank you. Yeah, well, like I say, thank you, Pedro.
Sir, it is a huge honor, and I believe that everything happens for a reason. That people are put in your path for a reason. And so I'm just honored and blessed to know you because I'm like, whoo, you have such a bright future. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. So I want to encourage everybody again on Wednesday, August the 11th, go to Eventbrite and then type out the Comedy Club and just go and register and just I want I mean, this event is going to be fantastic. I can't wait. So I want to just say again, Callum, thank you. I look forward to Wednesday. I want you to have an awesome day. Take care, be well, and stay safe.
If you like this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review. Thank you for listening, and we will talk again.